Good morning, everyone. Welcome. My name is Claire Olekshak. I'm the Executive Director of Sustain Dane. Welcome to the 2020 Sustain Dane Summit. I am excited to be here. I'm excited for all of you to join us today. I would like to start today recognizing we are on the traditional territory of the Ho-Chunk tribe. I acknowledge that the systemic inequality existing today stems directly from the past crimes against the Ho-Chunk people. And today, I also celebrate their incredible resilience and strength. The Ho-Chunk tribe has lived here for over 12,000 years, and there is so much we can learn, so much I have learned when we're listening. The theme for this year is Decade to Deliver, 2020. It's the beginning of a decade. It's been quite a year to start out, but this is really the year where we're coming together and we're accelerating our actions and we are delivering on the results that we need to see for holistic sustainability. A healthy environment, a just economy, and equity and social well-being for all. We have a fantastic program ahead today that's going to be exploring all of this and getting us motivated and inspired to move forward. Our keynote, we are going to look at climate solutions, the frameworks and action steps. Next, our panel is going to focus on how health and equity are profoundly connected to sustainability and how those connections have cascading benefits. We're going to have networking over the lunchtime, and then in the afternoon, we're going to be showcasing local leaders and the success stories. There are a number of emails that you probably received from us and from Zoom leading up to this program. We created a website just for the summit with all of the links in one place. It's sustaindane/summit-2020, and the password is Decade to Deliver. We're going to put that in the chat for you, so if you want to click on that, if you haven't found that in your inbox yet, it'll be a good way to have everything together. I would like to recognize next our sponsors. We are so fortunate to have such a fantastic group of supporters and the network. The members, the partners, the sponsors who make this summit possible and make really all of the good work of Sustain Dane possible. It's really a joy and an honor to work with you. Better Bin, C&W Services, City of Madison, Community Shares of Wisconsin, Dane County Office of Energy and Climate Change, the EVU Foundation of the Capital Times, Focus on Energy, Ho-Chunk Gaming Madison, MG&E, Office of Sustainability, Organic Valley, Reynolds Transfer and Storage, Slipstream, the Steve Stricker Foundation, UW Credit Union, UW Meritor, UW Health Meritor, and Unity Point Health Courts. Thank you to these top sponsors and to everyone that is a part of the network. Also to our individuals that make up this group and are part of making all the sustainability projects and actions possible. We want to just make sure to emphasize how important it is that we support each other and continue to do that and support organizations that value sustainability. I'm inspired by what you're doing. We also have created a directory this year, and you can see that in the chat. So this has more information about everyone and hopefully is an opportunity for you to continue working with them. Lastly, I want to recognize our board and our staff and our interns. Really a great group to be a part of this. I thank you for everything you do. Everlight Solar sponsored our interns this fall, which was great, so that we could have the number we did and have their support. Now, before we go to the program, I'm going to introduce Mark Richardson, who is the vice chair of our board. He'd like to say a few words, and then he will introduce Chissell. Thank you, Mark.
Thanks, Claire. And thank you all for being with us today. Well, virtually being with us, which is as good as it gets this year. And what a year. Every time we turn around, there was a new challenge. There was something to worry about, it seemed. But we're almost home, and this is a great way to round out the year. And actually, some good things have happened this year. And one of those good things to happen has been seeing the environment make a comeback. I'm sure we can all agree. You've seen the pictures from all over the world. Views that haven't been seen in decades are being seen again because humans, we aren't messing it up quite as much. And maybe more people will realize that we can do something to meet this challenge. And if we can do something to meet this challenge, then perhaps we can do something to meet other challenges like social injustice and poverty that hold us back from having truly sustainable communities. Another good thing to come out of 2020 is Sustain Dane's work and profile has actually increased at a critical time. Program attendance is as high as it's ever been. We've moved to a digital platform pretty seamlessly. Claire and her team are truly rocking it. Another good thing to come out of 2020 is a collaboration with Elevate Energy, which looks at naturally occurring affordable housing, or NOAA. Abby Corso has been a great partner in this work. Remember that name. Abby's relatively new to Madison, but not new to the work. We've got a really cool couple new programs coming up in 21, one of which is the Master Recyclers series. And I'd love to tell you a little bit more about that, but Claire tells me that I cannot. That in the business is called a tease. So you're gonna have to keep track of your social media and our newsletter to see what's coming. The Starting Blocks Social Impact Accelerator was a great program for Sustain Dane this year. Taking entrepreneurial thinking and for-profit thinking, moving into the nonprofit space over the last 18 months, really. And we've learned to leverage our work in new ways. And speaking of new ways, we launched brand new membership packages in 2020. We increased benefits, and we increased ways to participate. And so it doesn't matter if you're part of a big company or an individual, there's a place for you here at Sustain Dane. So, check out our website and look at those membership packages and see if there's one for you. One thing that hasn't changed, however, in 2020, and that's great programs with great content and insight from great speakers, like today's keynote speaker, Chissell. She's the Senior Director of Partnerships at Project Drawdown, and you're really going to enjoy her show. She's got a session for us that'll blow your mind. Crystal is able to stay a little bit longer than we thought she was going to be able to, so if the questions are flowing, have no fear, she'll be around to answer any questions. And without further ado, Crystal.
Thank you, Mark. So as you heard, I'm Crystal Chissell with Project Drawdown, and it's an honor to be speaking with you environmental leaders this morning and to be kicking off the Sustain Dane Summit. So sometimes I'm asked how I got into environmental work, so I'll share a bit about my background. And I'll just share some slides. Okay, so I think you're seeing my slides. Now, as a child, I had the privilege of spending all my summers at Highland Beach on the Chesapeake Bay. Just a sec, I'm having a technical issue. Okay. As I said, I had the privilege of spending all my summers at Highland Beach on the Chesapeake Bay in Maryland. And this gave me the opportunity to be connected to a beautiful place and to observe over time an estuary, wetlands, changing shorelines, and the animals, fish, and birds that were native to the area. This was the experience that formed my interest in the environment and my passion for protecting it. But there's more to the story. This is an aerial view of the Chesapeake Bay Foundation headquarters. Geographically, it sits next to Highland Beach on the Chesapeake Bay. At the very top of this image, you can see Black Walnut Creek and Highland Beach on the other side of the creek. Now, this building sits on the former site of the very popular Bay Ridge Resort, built in 1879 and known as the Queen Resort of the Chesapeake Bay, In 1892, Charles Douglas, son of the famous abolitionist Frederick Douglass, visited the Bay Ridge Resort, hoping that he and his wife could have a meal and a place to stay. They were turned away because of their race. So they took a stroll down the beach, past the Bay Ridge property, and had a chance encounter with the owner of the land neighboring the vacation community, neighboring the resort. Charles Douglas saw the opportunity to purchase and develop the site as a vacation community where Black Americans could escape Jim Crow and the restrictive covenants that prevented Blacks from purchasing property. Frederick Douglass went on to build a summer home in the community known as Twin Oaks, which has had a historical reservation and is preserved as a museum today. That community is now the incorporated municipality of Highland Beach, where generations after Frederick Douglass's time, I developed my love of the environment, and where that passion has been intertwined with my heritage as an African American. I devoted myself to public service at this community, living there as an adult and also serving as mayor of the town. Now, on to our main topic for today, which is Project Drawdown and climate solutions. When we think about climate action, we can think about, when we think about climate action, we can think about merely slowing the rise of concentrations of greenhouse gases, or we can think about reversing the trend altogether. This is the goal we call drawdown, which is the point in time when concentrations of greenhouse gases stop rising and begin to decline year to year. Now, as you know, greenhouse gases in the Earth's atmosphere trap heat and cause average global temperatures to rise. This global warming over time has resulted in climate change. Now, while carbon dioxide is the most prevalent of the greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, and also in the public discourse about climate change, there are additional greenhouse gases that are more potent than carbon dioxide that also must be reduced by climate solutions. Carbon dioxide is released when we burn fossil fuels, when we burn trees, through the manufacture of cement and other sources. Methane is released from landfills, from the production of fossil fuels, from decay of waste in landfills, and from the digestive tracts of grazing animals. Nitrous oxide is released from fertilizers and animal manure. And the fluorinated gases that are used as refrigerants and produced in industrial processes are the most potent of the greenhouse gases. These gases and their sources are what the drawdown solutions directly address. So here's a way to look at it. This gray rectangle represents the Earth's atmosphere. So on the left side are sources of emissions of greenhouse gases categorized by the type of human activity that causes them to be emitted into the atmosphere. 25% are emitted by electricity production. That's the orange band on the left. 24% by food, agriculture, and land use activities. That's the green band. 21% by industry, including the manufacturing of concrete and processes that require burning fossil fuels. 14% by transportation, 6% by buildings, and another 10% by other energy-related emissions, such as the production of coal, oil, and gas. Some of these emissions are removed by natural sinks, biological and chemical processes that bring carbon out of the atmosphere. 24% is removed by land sinks that sequester and store carbon in the biomass of trees, plants, and soils. 17% is absorbed by oceans and coastal ecosystems through chemical reactions. Currently, the majority of emissions, about 59%, remain in the atmosphere. Climate solutions can reduce the sources from the sectors shown on the left side of this graphic, or can support sinks that are shown on the right side to increase the amount of carbon sequestration. Now, as part of its mission, Project Drawdown conducts an ongoing analysis of whether it's possible to reach drawdown by means of solutions that are already existing and in hand. To date, we've had a global team of close to 90 researchers from 27 countries take part in this project. Now, the drawdown solutions do not include every climate solution currently in existence in the world. The solutions included in our analysis are categories of technology and practices that reduce greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. For each of the 76 solutions that are currently included, there is scientific consensus backed by data that they are currently available and scaling up somewhere in the world, that they are financially viable, that they have a proven potential to reduce greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. And there's sufficient data to be able to model the potential of the technology or practice at a global scale. Now, there are no silver bullets included, no theoretical technologies, nothing that is still under development, nothing that can't currently be scaled. New technologies and practices, once they are developed and viable, will help us reach drawdown faster. But the fact is that the solutions already exist and they're already in practice, but they must be aggressively scaled worldwide in order to reach drawdown. The extent to which they are implemented and scaled depends on local and regional context. Now, Project Drawdown's analysis describes a global system of solutions across sectors of human activity. This graphic presents a framework for how to think about solutions, those that reduce sources of emissions, those that support sinks, and those that improve society. Now, you can see here a representation of the potential to reduce sources of emissions in each of 5 sectors. The size of the circles shows the potential emissions reduction between now and 2050 as a representation. So the greatest opportunities we have are to shift production of electricity away from fossil fuels and toward renewable energy, address food waste and diets, protect ecosystems, address refrigerants, shift to alternative transportation, shift sources of energy used in buildings, and enhance efficiencies in both transportation and buildings. When it comes to supporting sinks, our greatest opportunity lies in shifting agricultural practices, protecting and restoring ecosystems, and using degraded land. Although most climate solutions have co-benefits that solve problems beyond climate change, one specific drawdown solution falls within this category of improved society. And that solution is we call health and education. When people have access to quality education and levels of education rise, particularly for girls and young women, uptake of reproductive health care improves where it is available. In turn, women's political, social, and economic empowerment expand, and fertility rates typically fall. The result is slower population growth and therefore reduced consumption. And this is particularly impactful in high-income countries where consumption-related emissions are highest. So with this solution, we don't intend to imply that people in developing countries bear the burden of slowing their population growth. This solution is modeled for uptake of family planning and slowing population growth in both highly developed countries, high-income countries, and less developed countries. Now, although some solutions offer greater potential emissions reduction, climate solutions are interconnected and interdependent. We must scale all of them to reach drawdown. We can't focus on a top 10 or top 20. Now, let's drill down a bit and look at some specific solutions. This represents the electricity sector of solutions. Now, of course, this is an enormously important sector, and the first that usually comes to mind when people think about addressing climate change. Electricity generation from solar and wind offer the largest opportunity here, along with stopping the use of fossil fuels. LED lighting also has significant potential as a way to enhance efficiency. The building sector looks at emissions produced on site at a building, as well as efficiencies to optimize energy use. Now, relative to other solutions in this sector, improved clean cook stoves offers a large potential. Half of the world's population cook on open fires or inefficient stoves that use wood, charcoal, coal, and kerosene as fuel. These fuels emit several greenhouse gases, including the potent black carbon. More important, though, is that millions of people die prematurely every year from illnesses associated with exposure to smoke from cooking fires and inefficient stoves. Project Drawdown defines the solution of clean cook stoves as solar-powered stoves or fuel-burning stoves that reduce greenhouse gas emissions by increasing thermal efficiency, reducing emissions, or increasing ventilation. Like so many climate solutions, improved clean cook stoves solve multiple problems. This solution improves health. It empowers the women whose productivity is lost when they spend long hours collecting fuel, such as wood. And it has the potential to avoid up to 72 gigatons of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere over 30 years. National and regional efforts are underway around the world to accelerate this solution by facilitating innovation, enabling markets for these improved cook stoves, and increasing awareness. So you can check out the Clean Cooking Alliance for more information if you're interested in this. Excuse me. Now, excuse me. Two solutions within the food, agriculture, and land use sector have been getting more attention for their potential to reduce emissions, and that's food waste and plant-rich diet. Those two large circles on the left and the size of the circles on this graphic show the potential of these solutions relative to the other solutions in the sector. Now, what does reduced food waste mean as a climate solution? Project Drawdown defines this solution as minimizing food lost and wastage from all stages of production, distribution, retail, and consumption of food. Studies suggest that 30 to 40% of all food produced worldwide is wasted across the supply chain from source to consumer. When food is wasted, all of the energy, resources, and money that go into producing, processing, packaging, and transport it are also wasted. The closer to the consumer that the food gets before it is wasted, the more resources have been used to get it to that stage, and those resources are also wasted. If measures are taken to reduce food waste by improving storage and transport systems, by generating public awareness, and by changing consumer behavior, this solution could lead to substantial reductions in waste and emissions. In Project Drawdown's analysis, we project the potential of a 50% reduction in total global food waste by the year 2050. If that 50% reduction is achieved, there is the potential to reduce or avoid about 87 gigatons of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. And this is far more than any of the individual electricity sector solutions. We also assume in this analysis that this loss and waste of resources can in part be diverted to feed undernourished people. A basic foundational premise of Project Drawdown's analysis of all climate solutions is that solutions must be implemented in a way that contributes to equity and benefit for all. So built into this analysis is an assumption that the world can begin to reduce food insecurity as we reduce emissions from food waste. This solution reduces emissions by reducing the need for agricultural production, by avoiding the need to convert forests to agricultural land, and by reducing the need for more agricultural land as the global population grows. Among countries, the UK is a leader in reducing food waste. According to WRAP, a British nonprofit focusing on sustainability issues, the UK is making significant steps in reducing its food waste, with total food waste levels falling by 480,000 tons between 2015 and 2018, a 7% reduction per person. WRAP's Love Food, Hate Waste campaign offers an assortment of resources and tools to consumers to help reduce household food waste. In a survey last April, it's of April 2020, WRAP found that households were wasting a third less of 4 key products: potatoes, bread, chicken, and milk. So a third less waste of those 4 items than they were before the COVID lockdown. So WRAP responded with its Let's Keep Crushing It campaign, aimed at helping people continue the less wasteful behaviors that people had adopted during lockdown, something that their survey found people were eager to do. Now, Project Drawdown defines the solution, plant-rich diet, as the individual choice to maintain a 2,250 calorie per day diet, reduce meat consumption, particularly red meat. So this is not even going so far as to be a vegan, even though that's great if you choose to be a vegan. But if you just reduce meat consumption, it's part of this solution. And thirdly, to purchase locally produced food when available. Livestock production is responsible for about 14.5% of global emissions and about 65% of agricultural emissions. About a third of all crops grown are for livestock feed. So over a quarter of the world's entire land area is used to graze or grow food for farm animals. This means that livestock products like meat and dairy require much more land to produce a kilo of protein than plant-based foods. So shifting toward a more plant-rich diet reduces the amount of land required for agriculture. In Project Drawdown's analysis of this solution, we project the emissions reduction potential if 50% of the world's population adopts a plant-rich diet as we've defined it. If that 50% adoption of this solution is achieved, there is a potential to reduce or avoid about 65 gigatons of carbon dioxide emissions over 30 years. Built into analysis of this solution is an assumption that undernourished people will begin to have an adequate number of calories, at the same time as those who are consuming excessive calories reduce their consumption. Again, emphasizing that climate solutions must also improve life for everyone. As with reduced food waste, the mechanism for this solution to reduce emissions is reduced need for agricultural production, avoided deforestation to clear land for animal agriculture, and ecosystem protection. A solution from the transportation sector that has seen an unexpected leap in adoption thanks to the COVID-19 pandemic. Ironically, it has more to do with staying put than it does with travel. Project Drawdown defines telepresence as replacing flying for business meetings with telepresence technologies. And it's what we are doing by participating in a virtual Sustain Dane Summit. Telepresence has the additional benefit of saving money. Telepresence reduces unproductive time spent traveling and allows for increased communication. Project Drawdown's modeling projects that up to 3.8 gigatons of emissions could be avoided by increased adoption of telepresence. And I think we might see this number increase significantly as data sets for the COVID period and beyond become available and incorporated into our modeling. Many of the solutions in the land sinks category also appear in the food, agriculture, and land use category because they both reduce emissions and sequester carbon. But their impact is not double counted in the Project Drawdown analysis. Project Drawdown defines the solution of Indigenous peoples' forest tenure as providing Indigenous communities with secure legal tenure rights to their traditional forest land. In other words, legal tenure is legal ownership of land. Studies in Bolivia, Brazil, Colombia, and Peru have shown that annual deforestation rates on land where Indigenous people have ownership rights is significantly lower than on lands where Indigenous people are living without ownership rights. Secure tenure supports long-term investment in their lands by Indigenous communities, and secure tenure can prevent overexploitation of land and natural resources for short-term benefit. Forests protected by Indigenous peoples' forest tenure have the potential to reduce or sequester up to 12 gigatons of carbon between now and 2050. Coastal wetlands can store as much carbon as tropical forests over the long term. Project Drawdown's modeling of the coastal wetland protection and restoration solution is based on the protection of mangroves, seagrasses, and salt marshes. This project on Delaware Bay was designed to restore 2 miles of degraded marshland. These photos show the transformation that's possible in only 2 years' time. Our Earth is very resilient. Freshwater wetlands also sequester carbon from the atmosphere through plant photosynthesis and by acting as sediment traps for runoff. The Keweenaw Land Trust and the Michigan Department of Natural Resources joined to permanently protect 1,374 acres, nearly a mile of Lake Superior shoreline. These protected lands provide wildlife habitat, maintain air and water quality, and provide the public with scenic views, access, education, and recreation while serving as a climate solution. Earlier this year, Project Drawdown researchers published a paper mapping all drawdown solutions to the UN Sustainable Development Goals. Now, this further demonstrates that climate solutions have multiple co-benefits that help alleviate poverty, improve human and ecosystem health, eliminate hunger, reduce inequalities, and promote gender equality. Now, in order to reach drawdown by 2050, the adoption of climate solutions must scale at ambitious rates. These accelerators can help move solutions forward. 1, shape culture to change collective beliefs. Build community. movements, and diverse leadership. Set goals, specific goals, so that we know what we're moving toward. Change laws, rules, and policy to advance solutions. Shift capital so that public and private investment and philanthropy are also helping to move solutions forward. Change behavior so that we can move beyond the status quo. And improve technology so that innovation can move us more quickly toward drawdown. If I can leave you with some takeaways, they would be to think beyond renewable energy to the full landscape of climate solutions. Think beyond individual action to collective action. The scale of change we need to reach drawdown will require systemic change and our combined power to put pressure on decision makers and to signal markets that we want change. And lastly, climate solutions have multiple co-benefits. We can gain more support for solutions when we look towards solving multiple problems. Now, if you want to learn more about climate solutions, and I urge all of you who are environmental leaders and climate leaders, and that's you if you're attending Sustain Dane, there's no way out of it. I encourage you to learn more about climate solutions. And there's several opportunities. First, download the Drawdown Review. This is Project Drawdown's most recent updated analysis of solutions, and it's available for download for free at drawdown.org. It's also been translated into both Spanish and French, also available for free download at drawdown.org. Consider attending the Research to Action conference hosted by Project Drawdown and the National Council for Science and the Environment. That's coming up in January, and you can find information also at drawdown.org. And there are many resources available at drawdown.org. You can see there the full list of drawdown solutions analyzed. You can find additional information and a separate page for each solution there. And by scrolling down on the page, you can find links to technical summaries that can give you more insight into the definitions of each solution, the methodology used to analyze them. So thank you so much for allowing me to present this morning, and I'm happy to answer questions.
Thank you so much, Crystal. It was a fantastic summary of the work of Project Drawdown. I've been collecting the questions that people have been putting into the chat, so I will start with those, and feel free to add to them. Also, introduce yourself in the chat, your organization, or kind of what you're passionate about too, as we have this time at the end to really kind of start that communication together. So one of the first questions that I want to make sure we get to is someone asked at the end here, what are just the top 3 solutions? For those that haven't pulled up the website yet, could you just rattle off those top 3 solutions?
Okay, the top, let's see, I don't want to give an inaccurate, let's see. I'm sorry, but I'm having a brain lock on the top 3. I don't want to misstate it.
Okay, how about your top 3 favorite?
Oh. Well, I really like the reduced food waste and plant-rich diet solutions that I talked about today, because they are ones that any of us can participate in. many people want to know, what can I do? What individual actions can I take? And those are two of them. In addition, as we can scale them, I think it's just a hugely worthy goal that we reduce food insecurity around the world. So that's one of my favorites. Those are two of my favorites.
And I think the audience would agree with that. We had a number of questions around that area. One of them was wanting to understand.
Someone has saved me in the chat by posting the top 3.
Go, Robin. Thank you, Robin.
But since that question came up, I do want to emphasize that although in our modeling, these are represented as the top 3 by their potential to reduce greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, we cannot think that we can only focus on a handful of the top solutions. These solutions are all integrated into an entire whole system. They're integrated in our modeling. They interact with each other and affect each other. So we have to look at scaling the entire system of solutions.
I think that's a really good point and really aligns with our work, right? This is a lens that we all carrying with us about sustainability in all the areas that we work and we touch professionally and personally. Yeah. So we had some other questions.
So that's borne out by data. It's not just a good notion. It's also borne out by science.
Yes, which is one of the things we love, is all the scientists that contributed to your work. So in terms of reducing food waste, we want to understand a little more about how equity kind of interweaves with the way you guys look at that. We have options in our culture and many cultures. There's others where there's limited choices. There's also, just the question about, difference between, what, development levels. And some area that is being used for grazing, maybe it wouldn't work as much for a sink, and maybe it's really important for the economy. So how does that all get kind of thought about, or what are some advice you have for thinking about that?
Sure. So the drawdown analysis is a global analysis. We're looking at global data, and our modeling is on a global basis. So every solution is not applicable in every area of the world. So that's something that we should recognize when we're looking at the project drawdown analysis. Now, as far as equity, I've talked about this, how equity is built into the plant-rich diet and reduced food waste solutions. We're looking at for the plant-rich diet solution, we're looking at those who are over-consuming meat to make a 50% reduction. So we're not ruling out that people in developing countries who are wanting to add meat to their diets will not be able to do so. We're looking more at those in the most developed countries who are over-consuming to reduce their consumption, while buying more locally produced food and adopting more plant-rich diet. So that sort of analysis is built into all of our modeling, that we're not favoring the more developed countries who are in fact the highest emitters, but that we're looking at the developed countries, the high emitting countries, as doing their share to reduce emissions, while allowing people in the less developed countries to also develop and have healthy diets.
Thank you. Another question I wanted to ask you about is partnerships and collaboration. I mean, we certainly value that a huge amount at Sustain Dane. And you had talked in your WART interview about partnership with the Nurses Association, and I found that fascinating. Could you share a little bit about that partnership, and if there's any others that are kind of at the top of the list that you think really have a potential to help spread this information and create a ripple effect?
Sure. So while this research and analysis is the core of our work, we are now beginning to build out some partnerships that can help advance advance solutions as well as advance awareness. And partnership that we have with Nurses Drawdown is an example of this. And this is a partnership with a coalition of nursing organizations around the world who had already been engaged in some climate and environmental action, but wanted to scale that action collaboratively. Nurses are the most trusted profession in the world, according to surveys over many years. And so the nurses organizations wanted to leverage that to participate in more climate action because nurses can take action themselves as well as encourage others and people they treat to take climate action. In addition, because nurses are focused on optimal health, they recognized all the connections between our planetary health and human health. So this was the basis for their wanting to come together to have a drawdown solution focused approach to their climate action. So we have a number of categories of partnerships that we're building, including some regional research collaboratives to take a look, to do the sort of modeling analysis that we've done on a global scale in more regional contexts. And the first example of that is Drawdown Europe. We have a new program, Drawdown Labs, which is a collaboration of member businesses to look at private sector climate action and how to scale that beyond net zero commitments, and a number of other partnerships that we're building now.
Yeah, I think it's really exciting the way you guys are kind of growing and innovating right now as you're moving into the partnership space. Another question we have is one of our participants would like to know more about the role that oceans are playing as a potential for sink of carbon. They mentioned that, they believe, currently there is this issue with the carbonization and the acidification of the oceans. And how is Project Drawdown, including this research about oceans, and how can we have healthy oceans as well as be benefiting from them as a sink and as a help in our planet?
That's a great question. I'm so glad you asked, because this is a sector of solutions that Project Drawdown is currently analyzing. We've brought on some additional research fellows who are, as we speak, developing out our analysis of solutions in the ocean sector. So stay tuned, follow our work, and that information is coming soon.
I also, makes me think about the Great Lakes, as we're here in the Midwest, and, the role they might be able to play when you're thinking about the sink potential for large bodies of water, all connected. Let's see, one of our other questions we had here was about, I guess we're going back to, here you go. So policy change, right? Obviously, one of the biggest needs to bring about change and reducing and reversing greenhouse gases and other gases as well. As we have resources, you talked about this a little bit at the end, but what do we think about how do we kind of spend money or our time, priorities for us to invest in, and just thinking a little bit more about maybe that inspiration for as individuals, how we can move forward when we care about work like this.
Yes, so we have to look at ways that we can work collaboratively and build coalitions to advance solutions. Much of what needs to be advanced cannot be done in individual households. It requires broader systemic change. But I think that the more people become aware and knowledgeable about solutions and the sort of system change that's necessary, the more we can begin to put pressure on decision makers, elected officials, business leaders, all of the forces that need to come together to create systemic change. So now this is not actually part of Project Drawdown's analysis. We have not yet done any analysis of what are the best means of accelerating climate solutions with with luck, we'll be able to expand and have funding to do that sort of work. But we're not the experts on everything. There's huge and enormous expertise out there in the world, and we need to draw on it. The inception of Project Drawdown, the idea was to hold up a mirror to the world and show what work on climate solutions is already underway. And we need to do the same thing with the accelerators. Everyone needs to get involved in this effort. It's got to be a movement of humanity.
Yeah, thank you for that. I'd like to go back to the beginning of your presentation and ask you a little bit more about what you shared around, how you've come to this work. I know that you mentioned you were the mayor and that you actually were involved in some pretty impactful projects in that city that were climate solutions. And also, I believe you are an attorney as well, or so you were, you have a law degree, but practiced before. Will you share a little bit more about what you did as a mayor and some of that public service that you did early on?
Oh, sure. So most of my career has been as a practicing attorney in public service for the city of Baltimore and the state of Maryland. My role as mayor of Highland Beach was really a part-time role. It's a very small community, so I did a lot of public service there and had a great team working with me while I was mayor. And we were able to do some great conservation projects, installing rain gardens and around the town to prevent stormwater runoff. We saw ourselves as stewards of the Chesapeake Bay and the two creeks that surrounded our community. In addition, we were able to construct a new town hall that is a LEED certified platinum building. So it had many conservation and efficiency features, a living roof with plants, solar power, many efficiencies, and and permeable surfaces as well in the front and back of the building. So it was very rewarding to be able to serve the community in that way by preserving the natural environment.
That's great. How does Project Drawdown update its analysis? And how does it use the other climate solution models, like the UN Sustainable Development Goals that you mentioned? So those are kind of two questions, but related, the analysis updating, and then also the other models that you guys work with.
So we work with cohorts of research fellows who we've worked with remotely since 2015, and who are located around the world so that we could bring in a variety of perspectives. They conduct the research and modeling of specific solutions, and then all of that modeling is integrated in sector models and a broader full model. Our initial research was published in the book Drawdown in 2017, but our research and analysis continued, and then the Drawdown review, released earlier this year, presented an updated modeling and numbers for greenhouse gas reduction potential. So if you looked at so if you sorted the list of solutions on our website today, it differs from the sorting that appeared in the book Drawdown, because as new data becomes available, that gets incorporated into our models, and our assessment of climate solutions over time changes as adoption changes, as more data and information become available. So also we're increasing the sectors of solutions that will be included in the future. I mentioned the ocean sector. We're building out the materials sector to look at more circular economy solutions, and then others will be added as well.
I mean, it's a great reminder, right? You have the first book that you published, you have an update that just came out, and you're continuing to refine that and add to it. That's great. Yes. Another question that we had was going back to the partnerships and thinking, do you have any partnerships with farmers? We are in Wisconsin, and farming is really important to us. Are there any partnership with the farmers?
No, not yet.
Ah, okay. Yeah, I think that would be a big area for us.
It would be great because farming is such a rich opportunity for solutions and for systemic change that will benefit not just the atmosphere, but also farmers and all of us who consume what's produced on farms. So we don't currently have such a partnership, but I'm not ruling it out.
Okay, good.
We'll look for, it would be a great opportunity.
Can you say some more about the upcoming Project Drawdown Summit or conference that you mentioned? Is it open to the public, and just kind of what would people maybe expect if they were interested in participating?
Yes, it's fully open to the public. We're bringing together solution sector experts to talk about the current state of solutions and advancing them. The theme of the conference is research to action. So it's not enough we've gathered all this information about what are the effective solutions, but now we have to take a clear look at how do we scale them? How do we put them in action? What's next? And that's what the conference is designed to look at. So we're also partnering with this conference with the National Council for Science and the Environment. So the first half of the conference is devoted to NCSE's programming, and the second half to Project Drawdown's programming. So there's a lot of opportunity to look at the science generally around climate in the first part. There'll also be a deep dive into COVID and how that is interacting with climate science. And so there's quite an array of programming that will be available, and it is open to the public, yes.
One other question we have.
With free registration for students.
Oh, good. Yeah, we always want to encourage students and young people to attend.
Yes.
So teleworking is one of the items that you emphasize in your presentation, and is a way we've had to adapt it during COVID, but as was mentioned in the chat, not something that us Midwesterners have always embraced or come to. So I want to ask a little more about kind of, what do you see in terms of how we continue teleworking? And maybe too, how Project Drawdown, you guys have been remote for quite some time. So maybe some of the benefits that you guys have seen from it.
Yes. So I think the primary benefit for us has been to draw from talent around the world. Mm-hmm. So that's the primary benefit for us. And yes, our organization went fully remote about a year before the COVID lockdown started. And we've always worked remotely with our researchers since the organization was founded in 2014. So I think that there's many benefits. All of the reduced transportation, of course, is good for climate. But there's also challenges. It's an adjustment that we're having to make. Mm-hmm. And, I think that there's a lot of expertise gathering about how to make it work. And this is a great example of the sort of broad change that we're going to need to make if we want to reach drawdown by mid-century. So this is the sort of, we won't always know what are the best ways to, what are the best practices. We're going to be learning as we go, but we've got to move forward with making broad changes. And COVID showed us that we can make broad changes around the world if necessary. So let's not wait on a tragedy like a pandemic to make the change. We see that we can make change and make sweeping change and quickly. So let's take that into other sectors of solutions as well.
And I think that is a wonderful final statement for this panel. So thank you, Crystal. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for the work and the research that you do, and for all the team at Project Drawdown. So we hope that you guys can join us for our next session, which will be at 10:30, our panel, about the intersection of climate, health, and equity. We have the website again in the chat to kind of keep up on your desktop, on your laptop today, so you can see all the programs. So thank you all for joining us to kick off the Sustain Dane Summit this morning. And thank you for all the work you do for our communities around sustainability.
Thank you.